Hey everyone, I'm Madilynn Dale, the chapter goddess. I'm a mom, author, blogger, freelancer, host, and overall creative. I really like to sit down and chat with authors and other creatives to hear what they add to the creative world in general. How do they bring their authentic selves to life in what they do? Our authenticity is important, especially in the world today. So sit back and relax and grab a cup of coffee, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's meet this episode's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Book Chat. Madilynn Dale here, and I've got another author for you guys to check out. Before I bring him in, though, I want to mention I have a new book dropping coming out in January. Depends on when you see this, listen to this. Blue Flames is finally getting out there. So you guys check it out. You can grab the first book, Black Flames, on my website, thechaptergoddess.com. But here is our special guest today. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about you.
Absolutely. So, hi, I'm Michael Young. I run under Michael D. Young since there's it's kind of a common name. But I kind of have two different sides of my writing. I do a lot of fiction, fantasy, and science fiction series on one end, and then on the other end, I've got a lot of nonfiction. And the book I want to talk about today actually has to do with is a Christmas themed book. This all about Christmas carols. And it's also my latest release. And so I thought, hey, we're going to be talking in December. Might as well talk about this book. It's been going great. I've actually had I had a couple book signings for it last week, and I've got 3 more coming up at this week. So it's been full speed ahead.
Yes, it's always fun when like new books come out. You've got all this stuff. It's almost like a good kind of chaos going on.
It is, yeah, totally.
And this is Advent carols, right? Countdown.
Yeah, an Advent carols countdown. Yeah.
Yes. So where did the inspiration come from for this story? Let's give us a little more information.
Oh, yeah, no problem. So, what you'll find in it is it's called an Advent carols countdown. So the Advent is it's like an Advent calendar, where it's split up into 24 different sections. So like you can read one section every day leading up to Christmas. Kind of like those little Advent calendars. You get a little chocolate every day, whatever. But each one of them tells the true story of a different Christmas carol. So that you learn about the carol, and then at the bottom there's a little QR code. So you just hold your phone's camera over it, and it plays that carol for you. So you learn about "Oh Holy Night" or whatever, and then you hold your phone up, and it plays has a YouTube video of "Oh Holy Night" that it plays for you. So hopefully, I envision this as being kind of like a tradition, a Christmas tradition that people can start with their families. That you read about the carol, and then you listen to it every day, and it helps you anticipate the coming Christmas season.
That is amazing, because I've wondered like what the background history is behind carols, but I've always like kind of pushed
Who
it off,
knows?
because that thought comes up anytime we're like singing it or when I'm with family, and I'm like, no, I got to pay attention right now. I can't go get lost in a rabbit hole. Like, really want to know. But that's really cool, and that it
Thank
plays
you.
that with the QR code. That's creative. Like, definitely how you put that in there.
Oh, thank you. And because the thing is it started out as a podcast I just called The Carols of Christmas, and each little bite-sized episode was a different carol. And on the podcast, I would talk about the carol, and then I would sing a verse of it. I'm a musician as well. So, but I'm like, oh, how can I do it this way? So, but the neat thing is the QR codes take you to videos, and a lot of them are actually of a choir that I sing with. So there's a bonus game of Where's Waldo. You could try to spot me in the choir.
That is awesome. And I apologize for my dog barking in the background.
Oh, no worries.
I have way too many animals in this house, and they always like to act up. I feel like when I get to like chatting with anybody, it's insane. Do you have any pets?
I don't have pets, but I have 3 children that can be quite noisy when they want to be.
Absolutely. I mean, it's almost like my animals are children too, but like, oh gosh. I actually had a lot,
Yeah.
and you can't see them, but I have one dog and one cat in here because they were like, no, mom, don't shut the doors. Like, as long as you're quiet. And the other dog is now barking in the living room with my child. So
Oh, gotcha.
gosh. So what other books do you have besides the Christmas book you mentioned? Because you said you write fiction as well, like other
I
fantasy,
do, yeah.
sci-fi.
I've got a few main series. The first one that came out is called the Canticle Kingdom series.
Mhm.
That's like a kind of a young adult about uh, a person who gets pulled into a world that's contained inside of a music box. Uh, so that's a really fun one. I've got another series called the Last Archangel series. It's kind of like an angels and demons end of days sort of um, scenario there. Uh, where you follow a guy an angel who's a destroying angel, so he can decide whether to spare somebody or to whether they need to be destroyed.
Ooh,
um,
nice.
then we have my series called the Chess Quest series, like chess pieces, pawn,
Mhm.
rook, knight. So there's five of those, and each one is based on a different. The titles are based on a different chess piece, and that's just a middle grade series about
Yeah.
a young man who discovers that he's part of this order of knights, and so those are the those are the ranks. Like you start out as a pawn, you get promoted to a rook, and yeah, and eventually it becomes the king. So
Oh, that is actually really cool. I like
thanks.
that. And so you've got you've got books kind of like in multiple like areas.
Hmm.
How do you put your mind in the mindset to create such different pieces?
I just the way that I work, I always have multiple things going on at once. I kind of like the strategy of having multiple projects
Mhm.
and then just consistently chipping away a little bit at each one every day. I think
Yeah,
I've got a little bit of that limited attention span where it's really hard to sit down and write, you know,
I feel
a
that.
1,000 words, right? Just back to back. But like I just okay, I'm going to write a few hundred here and a few hundred here. I'm going to work on this and that. And as long as you're consistent with that, your stuff still gets done.
Mhm.
And then there comes a day when you're like, whoa, look, I just finished like 5 projects. How fun!
Yes.
That's it's a good feeling.
It is. I kind of do the same thing. It also gives your mind like a break because sometimes
Yeah,
you ever find yourself just like staring, like, come on, thought, you were there earlier, but
you
it's
got
like
this.
not happening and just, yeah. That's
No,
all.
I agree, and like you never get too like in your head about it. Like I can write 300 words on this right now. Like that's that's a very doable snack sized goal. And then
Yeah.
that you kind of need to set those goals in a way that you can be consistent about it. Like I'm like, I'd love to write 10,000 words a day, but and I probably could for a day or two, but then you'd be like, "Yeah, I'm so done," and
Yes.
then it wouldn't write for weeks. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Burnout. Oh my gosh. Speaking of, have you dealt with writer's block before?
um, only in very limited context. So it helps the way the way I worked, like I just mentioned, and then I'm the kind of person too where I'm doing other stuff like hey I'm washing the dishes or whatever, and I'm always kind of letting the gears turn about my
Mhm.
writing. And so if I've got a novel that I'm working on, like last month we did National Novel Writer
Yeah.
Month.
Nano.
Nano, yeah, I won for my ninth time. I was really
Yes!
stoked.
Oh my gosh, I totally pushed myself to finish Nano this year, and not that I didn't last year, but, like, oh my gosh, I started out as like, "I'm gonna do this," and it's like mid-month stuff happened and life happened, I was just like,
Yeah.
"Okay." So I was, like, rushing at the end. Oh
Oh, but you
gosh.
made it.
I did.
Oh,
I
nice.
almost didn't, but, like, oh, that's just like, "You know what? I'm just gonna
That's
sit
exciting.
here and just, like, breathe."
Yeah,
Nano's
it's
always
like,
fun.
especially for Nano, I was like, okay, I've got to. Oh, when I'm not writing, I'm often thinking about it and kind of
Mhm.
working out some of the okay. Now, how would what would be the most interesting way to resolve this conflict, or like what would they do next? What would be in character? What would be in character? And so with that, when I sit down to write, I've got okay. I've already chewed on this for a little while, and I go.
Yeah.
So I don't often have problems with writer's block for that reason.
Nice. That's good. So that the whole like way you've got it writing helps. Um, what was your favorite book to write out of the ones you have done so far?
Oh man, that's so hard. I think it's actually gonna it's the one series I didn't actually mention. It's called The Hunger, and
Mm-hmm.
then this is one it's aimed at a more it's aimed at an adult audience, just because it's more of like a high fantasy, more complex themes and characters and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that because I'm such a kind of a world building junkie. I love just diving deep into like creating worlds and thinking about different aspects about their food and their music and their literature and their history and their
Yeah.
politicians and just I felt like I got to do a really deep dive in that one, so that was super satisfying uh, to bring that all together and to create this big kind of complex world.
Ooh. So with doing the world building, where did you go to find the research to create this?
That's a really good question. So there are three main like countries
Mm-hmm.
that were part of the plot, the kind of three tribes, and so I based each one of them kind of on a different traditions. Like one of them was a little bit more kind of Norse feeling, and
Ooh.
so like I don't directly take like the Norse pantheon or whatever,
Yeah.
but like the kind of like the same sort of values and same sort of kind of lifestyle and like a little bit of like their fashion and stuff, but then adding a few things that are completely different from that, like mixing the familiar with the strange. I think
Mhm.
it's just it's usually excuse me, a winning formula. And so I each one of the three major tribes is loosely based on some sort of real world stuff,
Mhm.
countries or cultures, but adding um, a fantastical spin to them. Things that it's there's elements of that world that don't exist in our world, and so you have to account for that. And like how
Yeah.
would they deal with this X, Y, and Z? Yeah.
Yeah, I always love those little intricate details that readers don't even think about when they read it. But like, when once you become an author, you see things so differently than the readers do. Because that,
Absolutely.
like the world building stuff, like you have to go through and create a history before you have your characters, and it's just a lot of fun. Did you do a fascinating backstory for any characters in that?
Yeah. So with this one, I actually, after I wrote the first book, I went back and wrote a novella to kind of be like my reader magnet.
Mm-hmm.
That was that told the story of one of the main characters' ancestors, and that it tied into kind of like it helped you see why my protagonist was the way he was. Like this is the family that he came from.
Yeah.
He was a little bit more upper crust. Um, Sort of guy, but then and he gets fascinated. He himself gets fascinated with history, and so I thought it like I had to tell some of that history in a way that it stands on in its own as a story, but then also links in with the bigger story that I'm trying to tell.
Ooh.
So that was fun.
Yeah. So I want to pull us back to an Advent Carols countdown.
You bet.
What is your favorite carol in that story? Having
Oh,
researched the backstory or well, the history of each carol, did you find one you liked?
oh, absolutely. There's so many that I love here, and a lot of them I've gotten familiar with just by performing them in choirs and stuff. I think my favorite story was actually the story of "Oh Holy Night."
Oh yeah.
So interesting because it's sung all over the place right now.
Oh
But
yeah.
so let me just kind of give you the Reader's Digest version. Do we still say that? I don't know.
It works.
Was that the Too Lazy Didn't Read version, right?
Yes.
Maybe today for the
What are
internet
they? They're
generation.
Cliff Note version.
The Cliff
That's another
Notes, yes,
term.
that everyone
Yes.
knows Cliff Notes. But anyway, it was actually first commissioned in France as somebody they were doing a big midnight mass at their church at this cathedral, and they commissioned a poet to create a new song for it. But this poet actually was not religious at all.
Oh.
It was not even a believer, and they just said, "Oh, look at the Bible, look at the Christmas story in the Bible, and come up with a poem that we can set to music. And so he's like, all right, cool. It's a paycheck. And so the guy who wrote it wasn't actually even a believer.
Mhm.
like, he wasn't Christian. But he wrote this beautiful French poem, and then they passed it off to a composer who was actually a Jewish man, who's
Oh,
also not doesn't celebrate
yeah.
Christmas.
That is
But so
interesting. Like,
uh,
wow.
yeah. And so those two came together, and for years and years, it was the music that we're familiar with. But it actually it got super super popular. But then the Catholic Church in France decided the song was a little bit subversive. It talks about throwing off. I think that, like in the second verse right now, it says something about chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, or something like that.
Mhm.
But so like they kind of have these little like undertones of like throwing off power and oppression, and so it was actually banned by the Catholic Church in France for years and years. Like you couldn't sing it. But that what that made them do is sing it more. 'Cause,
Yeah, I was gonna say that just encourages it.
they'd get together and they'd sing it in their private Christmas gatherings and parties and stuff. And so it kind of maintained this underground popularity for a really long time. And then over time, it got a lot of people from France left to go live in the New World, settled in what's now the United States. And finally, a Christian minister heard this beautiful French song, and he translated it into English into the version that we sing today in the United States. And so it's really the brainchild of three different people who didn't know
Yeah.
each other, and a Jewish man, a non-religious person, and a Christian all came together to create this like iconic Christmas song.
Wow.
And finally, the last really really cool fact about it is "O Holy Night" was the very first song to ever be broadcast over the radio. So
Really?
yes, they were doing a test to see, because
Yeah.
there'd been a lot of speaking over the radio up to that point, but they wanted to test sending music over the radio, and so they got a violinist, and
Mhm.
the violinist came up and played "O Holy Night" on the violin and broadcast it over the radio.
Wow. So
And so
that
it's the
actually tied into like history big time then. Like,
Yeah, so it like
wow.
and you would never know these things. So if you didn't dig a little bit deeper. So this was really really fun, because you just learned all these crazy cool things, and you
Mhm.
learned how old some of these carols are. Hundreds, 3, 4, 500 years old.
Yeah.
Um, that they've been used in celebrations for that long, and a lot of them, they undergo changes, but even the earliest versions you recognize. Oh, yeah, that's "O Come Emmanuel" or whatever, like carol.
Yeah.
Like it's you still
There are a
recognize it.
ton of versions of them, but I don't know, they're pretty, like, and that's really cool. Which one did you find that you actually didn't like as much that you put in there? Did you have one that was your least favorite? I know a
Oh
lot of
man,
them
I
have
don't
some
know.
fascinating facts and stuff. It's probably hard to pick one.
So I wouldn't say there's one that was my least favorite. I'd say that there are some that have better stories than others.
Mhm,
Like there's some like for my podcast I did it was called Yeso
mhm.
Bambino. And it was an it was a pretty straightforward story of like, oh, this guy, he was an organist in a church and he wrote this song, so it's like, there's something like that. And there's other ones that go back, hundreds of years and have these
Yeah.
cool like things about them, like "O Holy Night" and stuff. But yeah, I only put stuff. I just love Christmas carols so much that I don't think I'd say any of them are not,
Yeah.
that I don't like.
So in picking the carols for this book, did you just write down a list of 25 that, or yeah, 25, right? Did I get that number right? Or is it 24?
So I do 24, because it's
Okay.
just like an advent calendar. You like, you don't need
Yeah.
an
I
actual
was thinking, I was
Christmas,
like,
but
wait, that didn't sound right.
oh, no worries, no worries.
Did you just like pick 24 of your favorite, or did you kind of research like which ones were most popular during
Oh,
Christmas
gotcha.
time?
So actually, when I sat down and like I was planning it out as a podcast, right? So
Yeah.
I actually sat down and wrote out 5 years worth, like 5 Christmases worth of it, and
Wow.
said like, I'm gonna get I'm gonna hit all my favorites. But I also thought like I want to try to include some from some that are pretty familiar,
Mhm.
but also then a few that people might not know as well, and that like introduce you to something new.
Yeah.
And so I wanted a mix of both the familiar and the kind of the novel one, and so that played a lot into my selection process. Like in here, the book on
Mhm.
I believe it's day 13, I included this beautiful Norwegian carol that I hadn't heard until I participated in a Christmas concert where we had a guest artist from Norway named Sissel,
Ooh.
and she sang this Norwegian carol that just brought the house down. It was so beautiful. And so I just never forgotten. And so like I gotta include that in my
Yeah.
book. And so it's neat because then the QR code is actually goes to the YouTube video of her singing it from that concert.
That's so cool. I
Thanks.
love when you find songs like that that just affect
Mm,
you so much you can't forget them because it's just I don't know what it is. It just stirs your spirit and like, yeah, that's
ah,
awesome.
it's so good. That's all I'm like I've got to let other people feel what I'm feeling right here. Like
Especially if it's recorded. Like,
yeah.
oh, that's even
Well,
better.
and not even then this the singer is just
Yeah.
phenomenal. I guess she's kind of like the national treasure of Norway. Like everybody in Norway knows her because she's like their um, the
Official
person
singer.
they hold up.
Yeah, almost like, well, dare I say it, Mariah Carey with like the US. I'm not a Mariah Carey fan because like I got tired
But
of
no,
her Christmas
everybody
music
knows her.
right
Yeah,
forever ago,
totally.
but that's like all everybody talks about, and it's like, oh, it's Mariah Carey Christmas time, and I'm like, no,
No,
no.
no, don't do it. Or like
Oh
Celine
god,
Dion in Canada or something. It's something that like, oh,
yes,
everybody knows. Okay, she's from. Yeah, yeah,
that is so
totally.
cool.
So yeah, it has been just so fun, like sharing this book with other people and having them say like, I'm getting texts back and being like, oh, I've been doing it with my kids, with my family. It's been
Yes.
a blast. We're gonna do it every year. Like, you coming out with another volume? I'm like, I hope so,
That
because
would
I
be so cool, and I like that you because you mentioned you want people to use that tied into their traditions, and that's perfect. Like, that's a new way to introduce songs nobody's heard before. So,
yeah, and I hope, especially that in my later volumes, I want to incorporate from other countries' traditions. There are tons of great, for example, Spanish language Christmas carols that I've just sung a few over the years that I just love. They're so fun, and so and they just have a little bit of a different sound to them. And so I love that
yeah,
variety, and I hope to, through my podcast and through hopefully this book and maybe some other volumes of it, to introduce people to uh, a variety of things from all over the world. I think
yeah,
that makes your musical music. Christmas comes around every year. It can it's nice to have a little bit of variety in what you listen to, or else like
yes, I have to agree because I kind of killed my husband with my like playlist. Because growing up, my family would travel from our home in Oklahoma to my dad's family in Texas.
oh,
And we
cool.
would listen to an Amy Grant Christmas album the
Oh,
entire way, and,
I know
like
exactly the one you're talking about.
yes,
That's
and
so
he
funny.
was so I was like, "Oh, we gotta do this," like, when we first got together and, like, started going to family, like, stuff and everything. I was like, "Oh, we've gotta listen to this. This is, like, a family tradition." I'm like, it was a longer drive for me and him than it was for my family to get to them.
So like,
So it was
we've
like,
heard
"Okay, we are
this.
not listening to this again, like, we've gotta listen to something else." I was like,
Oh,
"Okay,"
that's so
like,
funny.
but I love that album. It's like,
Yeah,
ah,
me too. I know I actually lived in Oklahoma as a kid for a little while with the Air Force, and so yeah, we my mom was a big Amy Grant, the
yes,
Judd, like a lot of those country singers. Yeah,
yes.
I know very well what you're talking about.
Yes, I've already played it for my son, and he loves it too. So I'm just like, "Ah," like, it's we're gonna keep it in, but and I love that you're tying music into the stories, like, you're bringing it all together, and that makes has a different effect on readers. Did you
Oh,
have that in
absolutely.
mind when you started with this creative idea?
Yeah, this is kind of like the two sides of my own life. I can't. Uh, for me, music and writing just naturally go together because that's just kind
Yeah.
of who I am. I I write a lot, and I sing a lot, and I'm like, hey, if I can find a way to merge the two, then all the better, right? It's a better
Yeah,
representation of what I bring to the table. So
I love it. That's awesome because you're using all your creativity to put it out there. So when putting the book together, what did you find was your biggest struggle?
yeah, just I think one of the biggest thing is, number one, just figuring out, okay, what songs would be the most appropriate, especially in this first volume here, like, and then also the disparity between some songs being so interesting and other songs being kind of just like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
middle of the road there. I mean, but there really are a lot of good stories. So I think sometimes you got to just realize they're not all going to be as cool as, say, Silent Night or Oh Holy Night or Carol of the Bells. Those are all great stories.
Yeah.
But you just want to include them anyway, because that you do want to make sure that they're, the songs themselves are worthy of being included.
Yes, that's true. And that process, was that hard to figure out? Like,
Yeah, well, and two, I had to pick a lot of songs. Like, I'm focusing on songs that aren't going to have a lot of problems with copyright and stuff. Uh, Actually, you'll notice in a lot of the chapters, I included all of the lyrics too, because most of them are in the public domain. But for example, Carol of the Bells, I could link the video, I could talk about the history, but I couldn't put the lyrics in because some sort of copyright something or other.
yeah.
So yeah, that was a little frustrating. That's probably the biggest roadblock I hit, was a little bit of that. But and I actually had to swap out one of them for that same reason. Oh, that's right. It was "I Wonder as I Wander." It sounds like it's an old, like, folk song, but it was actually written more recently, and so it was actually still under copyright. I'm like, really? That's a
Wow.
sounds like an old folk song, like you
Yeah.
something from the 1800s or something. That's of course not under copyright, but I did
Yeah.
have to swap that one out of the book. Because they're like, yeah, we'd have to pay a bunch of money to license this. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was definitely the biggest issue.
I bet. And that's no fun, like having
That's
to
right.
deal with that.
Well, but luckily, like I said, I'd been continuing the podcast, and so I
Mhm.
I had a bunch of other songs on deck that I could just be like, okay, let's just swap that one in.
That's good. That is
Yeah.
always good. So do you think you'll do a volume 2, or like I
I
guess
sh-
almost
it
like
it
the
is
second
all.
book?
Oh, sure. It's all up to my publisher actually at this point. I already put it together, the second volume together as a book, and it's in their hands. They have it.
Ooh.
If sales go well enough this Christmas, they'll probably give that the green light. So that's what I'm hoping. I'd love it to be like a little box set. You could, like,
Yes,
you
that
could
could
just
be like
like
a
pick.
little. You could go to, like, I'm gonna use Target as an example because that's like my go-to store,
Yeah,
and
no
they got
worries.
that huge Christmas section just like right there, and it'd be there with that. Yes, that
Oh,
would
that'd
be
be
so
so
awesome.
cool. Well,
Oh,
here's hoping. This is. I
yeah.
mean, so far I feel like the sales have been going great. I've been doing book signings, and
Mhm.
I've had a bunch of fr- you know uh, p- friends and coworkers and people in my choir come up and say, "Hey, sign my book, please." So just anecdotally, I think things are going okay.
Good.
And the nice thing too is, like, with a novel, people will
Yeah.
buy one, right? But with
Yeah.
with a book like this, that's like a gift book. They're like, I want one for me, and then I want five more for my friends. Like, to give out
Yeah.
as gifts and stuff. So I think that's helping to boost my sales in this particular one.
Because this really would make an excellent Christmas gift. So
Yeah, that's what people are doing. Like, I have to say, my one of my aunts is the MVP. She said, I bought 20 that
holy cow.
I know, that she gave away as just gifts to various people in her life. So I was like, yeah,
That's so awesome though,
whoever
because you're
told
like,
you that you're my favorite, and
yes. Like, you're my favorite aunt in the world, and you're
that's
just spreading my love everywhere. Here's my books. So,
yeah. So yeah, that's really nice. So I'm optimistic about the possibility of the series continuing. I hope so. I've gotten lots and lots of good feedback, and very, very very positive response, like on reviews and stuff. People have
Yeah.
been very happy with it. So here's hoping.
Yes, and I definitely wish you the best of luck with it because, like, it's
Oh,
the
thank you.
perfect time to get it. It's holiday season,
Yep.
and everybody's doing the Christmas shopping and stuff. So what I like to do with my shows, I like to ask every creative what their form of self-care is because, like, we all live in a chaotic world. How do you take care of yourself to keep everything going, like your brain on the right track and your just mental health in good health?
Awesome. So yeah, for me, I've got different go-to playlists.
Mhm.
I actually have one on my Spotify that's called "Feel Better."
Aw,
So
I
it's
like
literally
it.
if I had a bad day, I'm like, okay, it's feel better time, and I just let that shuffle through different things that kind of helps recenter me and like, okay, it's gonna be all right. Yeah, it's just a bad day, not a bad life. Like
Yes.
you have a lot of blessings. You have a lot of good aspects in your life. So just yeah, music really helps me keep things in perspective. I also I one of the things I just really love is spending time with my I've got 3 kids,
Mhm.
and, and my wife. It's just doing something fun with the family. I think really helps we focus again on what's really important. For example, I've got a little 1-year-old baby girl, and
Aw.
man, all I got to do, no matter how bad my day was, it just when I see her the first time in a day, and or just see her little face light up, see when I come home. That to me
Aw.
is amazing self care.
Yeah.
Just being around her, and yeah, it's great because she's a very silly, kind of goofy, loves to tease, loves to be teased. Uh,
Oh,
just as a just a big old grin, and just very expressive. So just being around them actually recharges my batteries quite a bit.
awesome. Well, we have reached our time. So go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers where they can find you and your books.
Absolutely. So one of the best places to find me is just my author website. It's pretty simple. It's just authormichaelyoung.com. I've got all my books for sale up there. Um, Specifically at Advent Carols Countdown, really all of my books are available on Amazon. Advent Carols Countdown is a hardback gift book, so it's a little bit smaller.
Mhm. Yeah.
Nice, gift fits right in the stocking. Uh, but it's also available as a Kindle ebook and as an Audible audiobook.
Ooh, I bet the Audible book is interesting. What's
Oh
it?
yeah, it is. And it's yeah, they did a great job with it. I'm like, wow, this is nice. My publisher pulled out all the stops, and the I heard just a beautiful cover artist, and like cover for it. The artist was incredible. So yeah, those are the best place to find me. I'm also on uh, Facebook under Books by Michael Young. I'm on Instagram. I've been doing TikTok. Actually, every day on TikTok, um, I say, okay, today is day 6. We're doing this song, and then I sing a little bit of it,
Oh,
like as a way to like, okay, read along with me and learn about this song. Carol of the Bells or whatever.
yeah. That is so cool. Well, thank you for being on the show today.
You're welcome. I appreciate your invite. This has been a lot of fun.
Hey guys, me again. Thank you for watching the show. I hope you enjoyed the book chat and everything we talked about. If you'd like to check out some of my work, you can find the link to my website below, or you can reach out to me through my website to be on the show yourself. Also, don't forget to check out the featured creatives' work. I super appreciate them taking time out of their day to be on the show. And also, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. We've got many new things coming in the future. So once again, thanks for watching. See you soon.